when Chad B. Cooper, a black belt instructor brimming with arrogance, noticed 10-year-old Violet Schmidt sitting quietly in the corner of Warrior's Den Fitness Center. A smug smile crept across his face. He believed he had found the perfect, unsuspecting target for his next humiliating demonstration, a tactic he often employed to inflate his ego. Little did he know, this cocky instructor was about to receive a powerful lesson in humility, one that would prove the age-old adage, never underestimate anyone. Dr. Susan Schmidt, weary from a grueling 12-hour shift at the hospital, pushed through the glass doors. Her daughter, Violet, trailed silently behind, clutching a well-worn paperback like a cherished friend. "Just 30 minutes, sweetheart," Susan whispered, gently guiding Violet toward the row of plastic chairs situated away from the bustling training area, a safe haven from the impending storm. Chad Cooper, a man who thrived on the spotlight and the hushed reverence of his audience, lived for moments like these. At 28, he had carefully cultivated a reputation built on intimidation and flashy, often impractical techniques. He relished the fear in his students' eyes, the forced admiration that fueled his inflated sense of self-worth. Violet, however, was an astute observer. As Chad launched into his routine, she quietly watched, her young mind dissecting his every move, every word. She noted the subtle shifts in his demeanor, the way he treated each student differently, based seemingly on arbitrary factors. When Ryan Kelly, an 11-year-old boy with visibly second-hand gear, attempted a challenging kick, Chad's initial encouragement quickly soured into sharp, biting criticism. "Kelly, what was that supposed to be?" Chad sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "My grandmother could kick higher, and she's been dead for 10 years. Violet's small hand tightened around her book, her brow furrowed. Even a child could recognize the blatant favoritism, the subtle yet pervasive pattern of bullying masked as instruction. It was a display of cruelty that resonated with a quiet, simmering anger within her. "Class, gather around," Chad announced theatrically, clapping his hands together to punctuate his words. "Today we're going to learn the crucial difference between real martial arts, the kind I teach, and wishful thinking, the kind you see in movies." His gaze, sharp and predatory, fixed on Violet, singling her out from the crowd. "You see," he continued, his voice laced with mock sincerity. "Anyone can pretend to know martial arts, they can mimic the moves, spout the jargon, but when faced with real skill, the truth always comes out." He paused for dramatic effect, allowing his words to hang in the air. "What's your name, little girl?" he asked, his tone dripping with false sweetness. "Violet," she replied, her voice barely audible. "Violet," Chad repeated, savoring the name. "Do you know anything about martial arts?" He already knew the answer, of course. He simply wanted to amplify the humiliation. "Probably not." "Well, Violet here is going to help us demonstrate the difference between real training and amateur dabbling. It'll be a valuable lesson for everyone." Susan, witnessing her daughter's frozen posture under Chad's intense scrutiny, felt a surge of protective anger. She started to rush forward, ready to shield Violet from the instructor's cruel game. "Come on, Violet, don't be shy," Chad pressed, sensing her hesitation. "Let's see what you've got." Violet slowly rose to her feet, her eyes fixed on Chad. Her expression was unreadable. "Okay," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'll show you what I know." Just then, Coach Dan Murphy, a man known for his level-headedness and genuine concern for his students, emerged from his office. "Cooper, what's going on here?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Just a friendly demonstration, Coach," Chad replied, his tone dismissive. "No harm done." Violet, however, interjected. "It's okay, Coach. I volunteered." Murphy remained unconvinced. "This is inappropriate, Cooper. Leave the girl alone." "Relax, Coach," Chad insisted, flashing a disingenuous smile. "It's all in good fun." "All right, Violet," Chad announced, turning back to the girl. "Show everyone what you've learned. Don't be afraid to impress us." Chad dropped into a flamboyant fighting stance, his movements exaggerated and showy. Violet remained perfectly still, her arms relaxed at her sides, her gaze steady. "Throw a punch," Chad taunted, his voice rising. "Show us something. Anything. I'm waiting, little girl." He paused, his eyes glinting with malicious anticipation. "Last chance. Or admit you're nothing but a scared little girl who's in way over her head." "I'm not scared of you," Violet replied, her voice clear and unwavering. A collective gasp rippled through the room. "Excuse me," Chad sputtered, his face reddening with anger. "You're just a bully," Violet stated, her voice gaining strength. "You pick on kids to make yourself feel important. You want to see a bully?" Chad roared, his control finally snapping. "Fine, I'll show you a bully." He launched a theatrical punch, telegraphing his movements with obvious intention. Everyone froze, anticipating the impending collision. Violet, however, simply shifted her weight slightly, moving just beyond the reach of Chad's clumsy attack. "What the hell?" Chad muttered, his eyes widening in surprise. Detective Joe Edwards, who had been leaning against the wall, observing the scene with a detached air, straightened up, recognizing the subtle grace and efficiency of Violet's movements. This was no ordinary child. This was someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Chad, now fueled by embarrassment and rage, swung harder, putting his full weight behind the blow. Violet flowed around the strike again, her movements fluid and effortless. Gasps filled the room. Arthur Wallace, the elderly janitor, dropped his mop with a clatter, his eyes wide with disbelief. "She's just a little kid," he whispered. 3 times Chad attacked and 3 times Violet evaded without even raising a hand in defense. "Fight back," Chad demanded, his voice laced with frustration. "Why aren't you fighting back?" "You haven't given me a reason to hurt you," Violet replied calmly. "You don't know who my father was," Chad sneered, grasping for anything to regain control. "Your daddy." Violet tilted her head slightly. "He died when I was 6, but he taught me everything. He was Michael Schmidt." Edwards, his interest piqued, quickly typed Michael Schmidt into his phone. The search results confirmed his suspicions. Michael Lightning Schmidt, Olympic medalist and MMA world champion, had indeed died 4 years ago. Chad stared in disbelief, his bravado crumbling. "You're lying," he stammered. Edwards held up his phone, displaying a photo of Violet with her father, both clad in martial arts uniforms, their faces beaming with pride. Dead men don't teach martial arts, Chad insisted, his voice laced with desperation. Melissa Grant, one of the more senior students, stepped forward, her expression grim. Apologize, Chad, and end this charade. You're embarrassing yourself. I'll finish what he started, Violet said, her voice firm, but only because you need to learn. Chad, momentarily taken aback, barked an order at Ryan Kelly, the young boy he had previously humiliated. Get over here, Kelly. I need a training dummy. Leave him alone, Violet said, her voice laced with steel. Chad, sensing a shift in the dynamics, stepped back, momentarily disoriented. He needed to regain control to reassert his dominance. She wanted to show off, he muttered. Now she learns a lesson. Mr. Cooper, Violet said, her voice carrying a surprising weight of authority. My father taught me that martial arts isn't about proving you're stronger than someone else. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. You hurt and humiliate kids. That's why you need to learn this. Enough talking. Chad roared, his patience finally exhausted. He lunged at Violet, his movements clumsy and predictable. She flowed around him like air, redirecting his force with a subtle twist of her body, and sent him stumbling headfirst into an equipment rack. Chad crashed into the metal frame with a resounding clang, sending weights and bars tumbling to the floor. A stunned silence descended upon the dojo. Violet hadn't moved from her spot. She stood there, composed and unwavering, her expression serene. I told you this wouldn't take long, she said softly. Arthur Wallace, the janitor, shook his head in disbelief. In 72 years, he mumbled. I've never seen anything like that. Chad, still dazed, struggled to sit up amidst the scattered weights. Are you hurt? Violet asked, her voice laced with genuine concern. Chad recoiled, his eyes wide with fear. Stay away from me, Miss Schmidt, he stammered. Coach Murphy, finally finding his voice, approached Violet cautiously. Where did you learn to do that? He asked, his voice filled with awe. He tried to hurt me, Violet explained simply. So I moved him. Dad taught me to end fights without injury. But where did you learn that level of technique? Murphy pressed. In my basement, Violet replied. Mom set up mats. Dad started training me when I was 4. Susan, her eyes filled with pride, nodded in confirmation. Michael recognized her natural ability early on. He always said she had a gift. Chad, still sitting amongst the weights, stared at Violet in disbelief. She's 10 years old, he muttered. Age doesn't matter, Violet said, her voice gentle but firm. Martial arts is about understanding. You're strong, Mr. Cooper, but you don't understand what strength is for. She extended a hand to help him up. Chad hesitated for a moment, then grasped her hand, allowing her to pull him to his feet. I've been doing this wrong, he admitted, his voice filled with remorse. Later that day, Violet addressed the class, her words resonating with wisdom beyond her years. Real strength, she said, is about helping people, not hurting them. Coach Murphy, deeply impressed by Violet's skill and character, offered her the role of youth instructor. Susan hesitated, concerned about the added responsibility on her young daughter, but ultimately agreed, recognizing the positive influence Violet could have on other children. The next day, Chad arrived at the dojo with his younger sister in tow. He approached Violet, his head bowed in apology. I came to say I'm sorry, he mumbled, for everything. Would you like me to teach you? Violet asked, her eyes filled with compassion. Chad looked up, surprised. You would? Violet smiled. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than yesterday. 2 weeks later, Violet led her first youth program class, her small figure radiating confidence and kindness. Martial arts isn't about fighting, she explained to her eager students. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. At the end-of-year festival, Violet students showcased their remarkable growth, not just in their martial arts skills, but also in their character. We've even learned, one young student declared, that people who hurt us can change. The entire class then recited their dojo's motto in unison. Strong bodies, kind hearts, brave spirits. Master Vasquez, a renowned figure in the martial arts world, visited the dojo and witnessed Violet's unique approach firsthand. Your methods, he declared, could transform martial arts training worldwide. You've proven that compassion matters more than years of experience. Violet, humbled by the praise, replied, I'm honored, Master Vasquez, but I need to stay focused on the children here. They're the future. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the dojo, Violet stood beside her mother, watching the students practice. Dad would be proud, Violet said softly, her voice filled with love. Susan smiled, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. He is, sweetheart. He is. Violet's greatest victory wasn't defeating Chad Cooper in a physical confrontation. It was teaching him and everyone else in the dojo that true strength begins within, with compassion, humility, and a willingness to help others. It was about standing up for what is right, not through violence, but through understanding and kindness.